Hey, I'm Zach, and in this video, I'm going to give you guys a crash course for beginners on Davinci Resolve and its video editing capabilities. Let's get into it. I'm actually going to put the link down in the description, but just go into your browser and typing in Davinci Resolve. Once you hit enter, it should be the first one that comes up. Click that, and you'll see right here, this is the main page. Now there is a free version and a studio version. The only difference between these two is that the studio version has about 10 to 15% more that you can do than the free version. But we're gonna get the free version today because it is everything that you need. So all you have to do is click download. You're gonna wanna download the version that you need for the computer you're using. So if you're using a Mac or Windows, make sure you click the correct one. If there are any Linux users out there, I'd be really curious to hear. Leave a comment down below and let me know if you're using Linux. So I'm on a Windows machine, so I'm gonna hit Windows. And essentially what you're gonna do is you're gonna fill out this information. And once you fill it out, you'll hit register and download. Here are all the timestamps throughout the video for the different sections of it. And I'll also leave the timestamps in the description, so if there's a particular place you want to go to or go back to later, you can just click it and it'll take you right there. So check it out. Okay, so now once it's downloaded, you should see a shortcut right here. So go ahead and double click that. And you are going to be greeted with this splash screen. So the first thing you see on here is going to be the project manager. And this is where all of your projects will lie. Down here at the bottom, you have new project and new folder. If you want to stay organized, I really like staying organized myself. You can click new folder and keep multiple projects within that folder, or you can just hit new project. So that's what we're going to do. So once you hit new project, you go ahead and label it what you need it to be. So this will be a Davinci Resolve beginner crash course. All right, and then hit create. And it's going to open up on the cut page. You can see there are little icons on the bottom. And the way that Davinci Resolve is broken up is into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different pages. Now what these pages are the different things you can do to your video. So we're going to start and go from left to right. And I'm going to click this media page down here. And this is essentially where you manage all of your media. As you can see on here, we're going to start on the top left. So this box over here is pretty much how you manage what is on the outside of the software. So if you open up a new window, you'll see, I have a local disk, a backup, etc. And I can see the same things within here. To the right is your actual preview. So the files I actually have for this project are actually on this YouTube work drive. So I'm going to go in here and then double click YouTube projects. And you'll see here I have Davinci Resolve Crash Course for Beginners. So if you go to here, this is my file structure that I use personally. There are multiple ways of bringing files into Resolve. So the way I do it, and this isn't, I think, the right or wrong way, but it's one of multiple ways to do it, is I normally go into the file structure itself on the outside within Resolve. I'll go to video files or whatever the file may be, and I'll grab all my files. And now down here, this rectangle box, this is essentially your file structure within Resolve. So the top one is outside Resolve, the bottom one is within Resolve. So I'm going to grab all this footage and I'm going to drag it down here and drop it. Now you're going to get this message that says change project frame rate. Well, what it's doing is it's looking at the frame rates of all these pieces of footage and it's saying, oh, this one is this frame rate and this one is this frame rate. So it will either match what the footage frame rate is at, or it will stay as the project setup. So for now, I'm gonna hit don't change. And you can see here, the footage is actually kind of all over the place. Down in this area right here, we have 25 frames, 23,976, 29, 24. So we have a mixture of frames. Here's another way of doing this. I'm actually gonna hit Control Z. I'm gonna undo that. So I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. You can still see the files right here, but I'm gonna go back to the file structure on the outside. I'm going to find video files. I can see them all right here. I'm going to highlight them and you can just drag and drop. Again, you'll see the same message. I'm going to hit don't change. And now this is a second way of doing the same thing. So hit undo. The third way, and this might be your preferred method too, if you want to do it quickly, just right click, you'll hit import media, and then you'll get essentially a window within Resolve. And again, you'll do the same thing. So let's get the files in here. We're going to drop them in, hit don't change. So up here you have your preview window. And if we double click one of these files, you can move this area right here and you can see a preview of the file itself. You can hit play on here and it'll play back. Hit stop. You can also hit the next. You can have a loop, etc. One nice thing about Resolve, and I think most editors can do this, is you can go to these little icons, and if you don't like a list view, you can change it to icons. So you'll be able to see a preview of what each file is. And then there's a third one that says the metadata view, and it will give you information about each clip, but still give you the icon as well. So it's definitely your preference. You can also, right up here, you can make them larger or smaller. You do have some icons up here on the top right, but we are going to save those for another tab. But this is essentially what you're going to do on this page. We're going to look at two other things really quick. So if you go all the way down here to the bottom right, you'll see a home icon of where is the project manager. So this is one way of getting back to your project manager. So I just clicked it, and you can see here's our course we created, and that takes you back to that page. So this is like your home hub for all of your projects. So if you ever finish one and you're like, I got to get back, but I don't remember how to do it, and maybe you don't want to quit the program and reopen it, you just come down here to this home icon, click that, and it'll take you there. Another way to do that is to go up to File and scroll down to Project Manager, or the shortcut key, Shift-1. So if I hit Shift-1, there you go. All right, this other icon is the project settings. So if you click that, you will see what your project is set up for. So right now it's set up for 1920 by 1080, which is full HD. The timeline frame rate is 24. We're going to change that to 23976 to match the lowest clip. And again, this just depends on what your clip is set up as. So if you're shooting all your stuff at 30 or 29.98, you should set it to that, or 60, or whatever the case may be. Maybe it's 24 flat, not 23976. But I will say you want to make sure that your timeline frame rate and your playback frame rate matches. Now, we're not going to worry about any of this other stuff because it's a little too advanced for this crash course, but this is the main box right here that you want to worry about when you first open up a new project. So now go ahead and hit save and hit change, and we're going to head over to the edit page. Now the next page is actually the cut page, but we're going to go to the edit page first. Now, the edit page is where you're going to be spending the majority of your time. And this is the, it has everything jam-packed. This is what's, in my mind, the most important part, or one of the most important parts of Resolve. The cut page is a simplified version of the edit page, but they have two very different purposes. Starting at the edit page, I'm going to go ahead and close these so we can see essentially the most simplified version of this. So the first thing you're going to see here is a preview of the footage we were just looking at. This is called the source viewer. To the right of that, in this area, is called the timeline viewer. So this is your timeline on the bottom. As you start dropping in clips, you will be looking at this window over here to the right to view what you have in your timeline. We have some buttons up here. So let's talk about those. First is your media pool. So your media pool is what you are seeing back on your media tab. This is all the media that you have in Resolve. If you have voiceover, videos, images, different graphics, animation stuff, whatever it is, it'll sit in this area. So you could right click and create a new bin and you could organize it. So let's call this footage. And I'm going to grab all this and put it in here. And you can see that the master bin holds all of the media that's in your project. So if you go under master, now you have footage. This is the folder within the master bin. If you click master again, you would see everything that's in here. So I have a window open and I'm back at my folder structure for this project. I'm going to go into the audio files. I don't know that I will be using both of these, but I have two tracks that I'm using. Everything I'm using in these projects I've found on royalty-free websites. and they were 100% free. So not only are they free for use, but I don't have to pay for them, which is really nice. Sometimes the artist asks you to do a shout out. Just keep an eye out for that. So all of this stuff I use in this project, I will have linked down in the description below. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these two and drag them into my media bin, my master media bin. So now I have 2 music tracks. I'm going to create another bin and name that music and place these in here just to stay organized. And again, this can apply for anything you bring into Resolve. Now that we're a little organized, this is the media bin. We're going to go over to the effects. So if you look at effects, I'll go ahead and close media so it takes up the whole left side. And again, this is just changing what you're seeing. So I'm just clicking effects and it's taking it on and off the screen. So in effects, you have effects for video, you have effects for what they call open effects, and we'll get into that in a minute, as well as audio effects. So if you click Toolbox, it should literally show you everything that's in here. So the first thing is video transitions. And you can see as I scroll over this, it actually shows you previews, which is pretty awesome. I don't know that most other programs do that. So you can literally see what it's doing. So I'm going to scroll back to the top and we're going to look at audio transitions. These are what are called crossfades. So if you're going to crossfade between one track to another. For titles, there are all these built-in titles, which are great. This is another area where I would definitely suggest messing around with and kind of figuring out what you like and what you would like to put on your videos that you create. And then you have the sound library. So right now it's on the Fairlight sound library. If I go here and I click this drop down and I change it to, let's say, local database, I can go in here and I can click the 3 little buttons. Once you click those buttons, you can add a library. So you could go through and find the folder that has all the sounds and you can add that into your sound library. So if you ever have a time where you need a very specific sound, let's say a swoosh, you can type in swoosh and it will pull up all the sounds with that word in its title. So we're going to close that. So again, we're looking at the source viewer and the timeline viewer. So on the top right, you have your mixer. So if you click that on the bottom, it will show you all of the audio tracks in their volume as well as a fader. If you move the fader around, you can see it changes the volume, but if you double click it, it will go back to 0. All right, so we're going to close that and we're going to click metadata. This will show you all the information about the clip that you're viewing. Close that. And then your inspector. This is probably one of the areas you're going to spend the most time on your editor. On the bottom, you have your actual timeline. This is where your clips are going to sit. Once we have media pool open, I'm going to go in here and click footage and we can see all the footage. So I'm going to grab all this footage and come in here and drop it into the timeline. If you hold down control, you can hit plus or minus to zoom in and out of your timeline. You can also, if you could see as I'm doing that, this is moving. So you could use this little slider right here to do the same thing. You can hit this button right here, which is the full extent zoom, and that will show you your whole project. You can click on the detail zoom, which will take you into the actual clip you're on. And this is called the playhead. So you can move that around to view your clip. And then you also have your custom zoom, which at the moment just shows you the whole timeline. If you have a scroll wheel and you click that button in, you can actually move around and use that to drag your timeline. So I'm clicking the scroll wheel in, holding it down, and now I can move anywhere in my timeline. So very convenient. I wish more programs did this. Let's talk about the toolbar. So your most common tool that you're going to use is your selection mode, and the shortcut for that is A. You can click and drag with your left click, and you can select the clips in your timeline. This is pretty straightforward. You can also use it to grab a clip. I'm holding down left click. You'll see it's moving around pretty fluidly, but the reason for that is because I do not have snapping on. If I put this back, or if I hit Control Z to undo what I just did, if I hit the end key, or if I look at this magnet right here, if you click that, this is the snapping. So now if I move this around, it's going to snap to the nearest edit. You can see as I get close to that edge, it is magnetized or pulls itself to that edit. So there are multiple ways of doing editing and modes in which you can move clips around. The next tool is the trim and edit mode tool, or the T tool. Now, the cool thing about this is that as you can see the image of the tool changes, and this tool can do a lot of cool stuff. As you get to the edge of a clip, you'll see it change. And this allows you to drag the clip left or right, and it shows you a preview of how long or how much you have left of the clip itself as you're moving. So this clip is essentially gone past the green point, but you can see as I move to the left, it goes back to the full length of the clip, but as I move it to the right, it shows you how much you're pulling away or getting rid of the clip. I'm going to pull this on both sides. So you can see I have a little bit on the left and the right. If you go in the center of the clip, you can see arrows pointing in both directions. What this allows you to do is to move that clip left and right within where the edit is. So the clip itself is not moving, but you're moving what part of the clip you're actually seeing and using. So this can be very helpful too if you're happy with your edit, but you want to move kind of like the point of where you are in the edit to a different area. And then I'm going to go back to the A key. I'm going to highlight all these and just move them down a little bit. And then I'm going to grab this, move it over a little bit. I'm going to hit the T key again to go back to the trim edit mode. And if I go down to the bottom, you can see there's another mode. Essentially, this makes so much sense. The arrows within it, if you're in the center, actually show you, okay, we're going to move this clip within the edit. But on the bottom, it says we're going to move this clip on the outside of the edit. In the available area, if I click the bottom of the clip, left mouse, hold it down, now I can move this around, which is essentially the same thing as the A, selection mode. I'm doing the same thing, but now I'm able to do 4 or so things with one type of tool. So I'm going to undo all this. So we're back to the beginning. I'm going to hit A again. And the next tool is the dynamic trim mode. And what you can do in this mode is you can edit while playing the clip back. So in most editors, you have the J, K, and L buttons. And those are usually J is rewind, K is play, L is fast forward or move forward. So if you hit the L button, this clip starts moving. I'm going to hit spacebar to stop that. I'm going to hit Command or Control Z to undo. If you hit it multiple times, it will move twice as fast on each move. So the first one will be so fast, second one is twice as fast, third, fourth, fifth, and you can see it starts moving really, really fast. You also have the blade edit mode. The shortcut key for this is B. So if you're in this, you can hover over any clip and left click, and it will cut. Pretty straightforward. Once you have a cut, if you're in the selection mode or the trim edit mode, you can hover over the cut and click and drag that cut without moving the actual clips. Or you can drag where 2 clips meet, and again, it shows you how much of those clips you have left, which is very helpful visually. Now I want to talk about these 3 items right here. So this first one is called an insert clip. What this is going to do is, if you haven't selected what's called an in and output point on your clip right here, then it's going to pull the entire clip from start to finish into your timeline. Let's say I wanted this clip to start right here, and I push the I button. That creates an in point. And then I let it play, and I really like it to stop right there. So I push O, and that creates an out point. I guess it wants you to do out first and then in. So we've got this in and out point, right? So now I can drag this down, and it should only be the length of this right here. Another cool thing, if I come up here to this side and I change this from list to thumbnail view, you can see in orange on the clip, this is what you've selected and pulled down into your timeline. So you can also see these 3 clips on here. So you see the full orange on it. And you can also see that it gives you a little preview icon saying, okay, this clip does not have any audio, but this one does. Just some nice little convenient things. So I'm going to come back to the timeline and delete this. And I still have this in here, but I don't want to drag it to the end. I actually want it to sit right in this area, and I want this to move out of the way. So you can click the insert clip or F9. I'm not going to click this. I'm just going to hit F9. And what that does is it inserts this clip, cuts off the beginning of this one. I'm going to zoom in, Control plus. I'm hitting the scroll wheel in and holding it down to move. Now it cut this one and push the rest of that clip to the right and put this right in where it is. So I'm going to undo that real quick, Command or Control Z. The next one is overwrite clip. So if I have it in the same place and I hit overwrite clip or F10, nothing moves. It literally takes this portion of the video and overwrites this section of the timeline. See this orange box around V1, which is video track 1? It's going to go to this box. So if I undo this and I go to V2, I'm going to click this again and hit overwrite. It's only going to write to that layer. This last one is called replace clip, or F11 for the shortcut. So now that I have selected, I still have this in and out point on this clip in the source viewer. So I'm going to click replace clip, or you can hit F11. And what that does, similar to the overwrite clip, it is overwriting, but it's not just overwriting the in and out points. It's overwriting the entire source viewer clip onto the timeline. So in the end, there are a lot of different ways to do the same thing. So we've talked a little bit about pulling stuff into the timeline, and we've also talked about some of the different icons and buttons and whatnot. But now we're going to talk about this guy right here. This is the timeline view options. So if you click this, it gives you some different options here. And I'll work from the top down. So the first one is stacked timelines. This view gives you options to go to different timelines. Now, I only have one right now, but if you had, let's say, 3 different timelines, you could have this view up and quickly jump from timeline to timeline. Because I'm only working with one timeline right now, I'm actually going to turn this back off. You have subtitles, which I won't have any in here, and you also have audio waveforms. And you have video viewing options. So if you look at each clip, you can see right now that there are several thumbnails. Well, if that is too taxing on your system, you can actually come right here and do a simple view and completely turn them off. I don't like that because I like to be able to at least have an idea of what's on each clip. If you come to this middle option, which is the thumbnail view, and the main one is film strip view, you can turn it on to where the thumbnails show at the beginning and end of each clip. Now this clip right here is a little bit too small, so you only see one, but on the larger clips you can see one at the beginning and end. So in regards to the audio viewing options, I'm going to go up here to the music. I'm going to click and drag it down into the timeline, drop it. A lot of times when you bring in music, it's mastered to 0. So I'm actually going to bring this down just a touch. Now you can see the waveforms for the audio. This first one says non-rectified waveform. So I click this, it'll show only coming from the bottom up as the dynamics versus it's almost like a reflection, the top and bottom. Or you could do full waveform underneath the text at the bottom, and it'll go beyond that. So it'll be the entire area of the clip. I don't personally like that because I like to see what the clip is called. And you also have a border, or it's kind of like an outline. So if you need a little more just to see the clips a little better, you can use this outline, and it helps just to kind of like sharpen the edges. And then the bottom 2 is the track height for video and audio. And that's pretty much the same as shift in the scroll wheel. But if you do this, you can move it up and down. You can change the height of both video and audio. There's still so much to go over in Resolve. Those other pages will be in future videos. I'm hoping that this video series is helpful for you. And if it is, definitely consider subscribing, hit that like button. And I really appreciate you sticking around to the end. So I will catch you in the next one.